Hi, good morning, everyone. So today I will be doing a session on machine learning. So initially, I was thinking of doing a more detailed session. Then again, I thought of giving you a starting off the first tech talk as a quick start on machine learning. So what we will cover in this session is mostly towards the basics. If you are new to machine learning, you want to understand the concepts of machine learning, this is where this session will come into the picture. So today I will cover these main topics. First one, we'll discuss about machine learning types. Then we will try to understand machine learning. To do this, we will use supervised learning. There are other machine learning types as well, but we'll discuss using supervised learning. Then let's go and discuss what the basic terminology. Then we can go ahead with a linear model. Then error of a model. Then we'll discuss what the learning rate is, and then generalization. And finally, if we have enough time, we'll go to feature engineering. So there are four main types of machine learning. These four are actually segmented into two, the main ones and the not so common ones. So initially what you have is the supervised learning and unsupervised learning. And then you have things like reinforced learning, recommendation, where you, for example, one example would be for these autonomous driving, things like Tesla doing autonomous driving. So those fall under this other category, but the main categories go as supervised learning and unsupervised learning. And on today's session, I will try to use supervised learning as a base, because it will be easier for me to basically explain what machine learning is using supervised learning. So if I come to a very basic example or basic idea of machine learning. So machine learning is basically using statistical methods to learn from data and predict on previously unseen data. So this is mostly towards the supervised learning example. So if I try to explain this, you can think of machine learning as a black box. So apparently we call this black box a model. So what we do is, to this model, we will send in some sample data. And once we send in some sample data, we'll ask this model to learn. So once it's learned, it's called a trained module. So if I take a very simple example, say you need to predict the housing prices of a certain area. So what you would do is, initially you will collect the data. Say, for example, you collect data of 1,000 houses. You collect features like the number of rooms, the square footage, the number of floors maybe. So you collect all that data. Alongside that, you will also get the value of that price for that particular house. Say, for example, you have 1,000 rows of data on this. So what you will do is, you will give it to the model. And what the model will do is, it will try to learn out of it. It will look at the number of rooms, the square footage, the number of floors, and then it will try to understand how this is working. So once the system know how this is working, we call this a trained model. So what we do is, once the system knows this, we will send in new data, and then we'll predict the value of the house. For example, you take a new house, you don't know the value. So what you would do it to the system, you send the number of rooms, the square footage, and then the number of floors. So when you send that information to the model, what our model will simply do is, it will take that data and then create a prediction, basically give a value for the house. I'll give you another basic example, an example all of us know. So all of us have an inbox, and it also has a spam on it. So how this classification works is, so the email provider has created a machine learning model. So initially when they created the model, they might as well used a set of emails which are spam and not spam. They might as well classified it as spam or not spam. So what they have initially done is, same as the housing example, they'll send all the emails to the machine learning model and then ask the model to learn. So the learning process, it will take different features of the email. It may be the title of it, the content, the sender, the spelling, how they have done the spelling, things like that may have been considered when they did the machine learning model. So once they have the model, what will happen is, when you receive an email, what will happen is, the machine learning will extract those features. For example, it may be the subject, it may be the content, things like that. And then it'll decide or predict whether it's a spam email or whether it's not a spam. So that's a very practical example of machine learning. So one thing to note here is that, for example, once in a while you get your emails that should be in the inbox in your spam. So that's the thing with machine learning. You can't always give a 100% correct answer. Once in a while, there will be situations where the predictions may be not 100% correct, but basically with machine learning, can build it to have high accuracy, but of course, there will be some level of error. So I'll move forward with the basic terminology. So this will be needed when we discuss the details of machine learning. So the first one is the model. So model is, I think I kind of explained it previously what a model is. Then we have features. The feature is also, I think, something I explained. For example, if you take the housing example, the features I took is the number of rooms, the square footage, and then the number of floors. Those are features. So labels are the ones, if I take this spam example, so you classified the email as being spam or not being spam. So this is the label, this is what is defined as the label. And then we have the labeled example. So labeled example is basically you have an email, you know whether it's a spam or whether it's not a spam. So that's a labeled example, meaning that you have a data row, you know exactly whether it's a spam email or not a spam email. So the next one is the unlabeled example. So the unlabeled example is where you don't know whether the email is spam or not. So this is when the machine learning comes into the picture. So you take an unlabeled example, send it to the machine learning model, and then the machine learning algorithm will give you a prediction on it. So an unlabeled example in simple is an example where you don't know the output. So you usually take an unlabeled example, you're supposed to give it a label through the machine learning model. So once we cover this basic terminology, I'll go into the most simplest of models in machine learning, which is the linear model. So this is an example I took from Google machine learning course. So in this example, this is very simple. Your input is the insects per minute. So basically you count the insects that are available for a given minute, and then against that you map the temperature. It's like a normal mathematical equation, y equals mx. You have your x-axis as the insects per minute, y-axis as the temperature in Celsius. So this is the data set we have. So what we need to do, or what we need to predict, is if someone gives you the number of insects per minute, you basically need to give the temperature in Celsius. So let's assume that this is the problem that we are trying to solve. So looking at this, you can see that this really looks more towards a straight line, right? So you can assume a model like this. If your model is something like this, so for example, if someone says that the insects per minute is 75, you can get a good understanding about the temperature. It may be something like 16 Celsius. So this is what we need to do. So in this linear model, the mathematical representation of this would be y equals mx plus c. But on the machine learning side, we redefine the variables as w equals y equals wx plus b, which is the same, where w is the weight and b is the bias. So this is an example where we have only one variable. You just have insects per minute. But say, for example, you have a more complex problem where you have other features like insects per minute, maybe the wind speed, things like that. So it will be a similar equation. The only difference is that you will have x1, x2, x3, and so forth until xn, the number of features that you have in the system. But for the sake of this session, we'll assume the most simplest of models, so that we have only one variable as the input, only one feature. Using that feature, we will try to predict the temperature. So in this example, previously I showed you one line. This is a different line. So there can be so many lines that you can predict. So it may be the yellow line, it may be the blue line, it may be the green line. So the point is, we really need to decide which is the best fit for the data. So without knowing that, we can't really come up with a mathematical equation to create a model for this. So to find the correct model, we can come into a concept called the loss of a model. So I'll move on to the concept of loss of a model. So this is the loss of a model. So I'll explain this. So here what you have is, assume that this blue line is the predicted line that you have calculated. Okay, so the error would be, you can see that there's a deviation between the red dot and the blue line. So this is the error. So this is how you really logically calculate or just visualize the error of a model. So what you do is, you have a model, you have a linear representation of what you think is the correct linear model. Once you do the line, you'll see there's a deviation from the actuals to the predicted line. So this is what is actually called the error. But this error is actually not directly used when calculating the error of a model. We use this variable or the squared error of the error. So I'll explain why. So in this example, if you can see E1, E2, E3, and E4. So the squared error is basically defined as the observation minus the prediction, and you just square it up. So basically you calculate the distance E1 here. It's like from 3 to 4 is your error E1. So you take it, it's the difference, and you just square it up. That's the basic equation of how you calculate the squared error. So if you just write it out in a more mathematical form, this is how you calculate it. But what's more important is that you just understand the core concept of the squared error. So I'll give you an example of how this works. So in this example, if you take this point error, this is +1, this is -1, this is -1, this is again -1. So since we did the squaring of these errors, we get the value of 4. But if we didn't take squares, what will happen is, this is +1, the first error is +1, the second error is -1, the third one is -1, and then again the fourth one is +1. So what will happen is, when you add this up, it will come in to a value of 0. So we need to avoid that, and that's why we basically square it up when you're calculating the squared error. So this example is also similar. This is +2 and this is -2. So you square it up and add, you get 8, or else you basically get a 0. So that's the importance of understanding the squared error. So now I try to explain what the error is. So our goal basically is to create a model that has a lesser error. So in other words, your deviation should be less. The lesser the deviation from this blue line, the better the model we have. So that's what we are trying to do over here. So how this will happen is, initially you will have your model, you will feed in your data, okay, and then you will make prediction based on the data that was sent to the model. So once you do the prediction, you can always compare it with the label. For example, in the housing example, you can send in the data of the number of rooms, the square footage, and the number of floors. So you send it to the model, and then it will predict a value. Say, for example, it's 1,000, but you know that this is not 1,000, this is 2,000. So basically there's an error in it. So what will happen is, you will use the model, feed in the data, and then try to compute the loss or the error. And what will happen is, we will repeat this process until we have a loss, a minimum loss to the system. So we just feed in the data, compute the loss, try to optimize the system, and again do the calculation, compute the error, and so on. So you will repeat this process until you have a good model. So this is the basic idea on how a linear model works. The linear model, I think, can be basically represented as y equals w1 plus x1. So here what I've done is I've actually removed the bias, the B part out of this, so this is even more simpler. So if you remember some level of calculus, algebra, things like that, it will come into your mind that if you take the error function and then basically plot it against the weight in the sense W, what will happen is you'll see that it will be a curve something like this. So what our target, the target for us basically is to find this W, which is at the minimum point, in the sense which creates the minimum loss. So what we will do mathematically is we'll try to find this W, which actually minimizes the loss. So how this happens is you start with a specific point, assume that this is the point. Okay. So once you start off with this point, you can calculate the gradient. So gradient calculation is also back to a bit of mathematics where you create, where you do the, take the derivative of this function. So in this case, this gradient is a minus value. So if your gradient is minus, you know that your minimum of this curve will be towards your right. So you start off with a point, you find out that your gradient is minus. So meaning that your value, the minimum value for W will be on your right. So what you will do is you will jump into a next point. This is the next point. Then again, you will calculate the gradient. So if you calculate the gradient, you'll find out that this point also has a negative gradient. Because of that, what you will do is you will again step into the next point. And like that, you will be stepping in slowly towards this point. So as you can see, it's a multi-step process where you slowly come down to this minimum value of error. So, so with this concept, we come into a new concept called the learning rate, right? This learning rate is also a kind of generic concept which applies to other algorithms as well. So I'll explain this using this example. So we started off with 1 point over here. So the gradient was minus. So what we did was we did a small jump to the next point and then calculated the gradient. So in this case, what I have done is it really grows very slowly. The jumps are very small. So your final target is to come to the minimum. But the problem is you're kind of coming in very slowly. So you need more iterations from this point, the start point, to the minimum point. So this is an example of when your learning rate is too slow. But this other example is an example where your learning rate is too high. So you start off with this point, you calculate the gradient and you find out that this is minus. So you make a huge jump over here. And then this at the second point, then again you find out the gradient is minus. So you do another jump. The problem is when you do these large jumps, now you are at the other side of the curve. So probably when you do this, what will happen is instead of converging to this minimum point, your point will be diverging from left to right and so forth. So your learning rate, I think what I want to show is your learning rate is quite important. It should not be too fast. If it's too fast, probably you won't end up with the minimum value, the value for here. If it's too slow, what will happen is it will take a lot of time for you to come to this minimum. There are different algorithms and ways that you can actually optimize how you do this, but probably we can discuss it in a later session. So then we have a concept called data separation. So normally when you get a data set, say for example, if you take the same housing example we took initially, so if you have 1,000 example, you will generally break it down into maybe 80-20. So that's 800 and 200. So what we do here is you take that 800 and then use that 800 to train the model. And once you train that model, you need to know how good this model is. So what you do is, once you have a trained model, you use the test set to evaluate how good this model is. So that's the concept of test set. Just take an example. You take a module at your university. So what will happen is, you will go to the lectures. For example, you discuss 80 questions, but for the exam you should be getting new set of 20 questions, right? Because to evaluate you, if the lecturer evaluates based on the questions that was already discussed on the class, it's not a very fair evaluation of the student. So something similar, you have your whole data set, you take part of it and ask the system to learn. Once the system learns, you have still a remaining set of data. You use that and then basically evaluate the model. So apart from the test set, there's another concept called the validation set. So in this is the most common approach, where you have training set, validation set, and the test set. So this is also somewhat similar to the last concept. So here what we do is we break the data set into 3 parts. The first one you have is the training set, then you have your validation set, and then you have your test set. So what will happen is, initially, take this housing example, you do is you take 600 examples and then create a model. Okay, then you may create one model, you may create multiple models. So based on those models, you use the validation set to pick what is the best model. So you may have different parameters within the model, you may do certain tweaks, and then you may have different models that you can associate with the prediction of housing prices. So each of these models you can validate using the validation set. So once you use the validation set, you pick the best model based on the validation set. So once you have that model chosen, you have to basically understand how good that model is. To do that, you will use something called the test set. So this is kind of the type of segmentation that you most commonly get over the previous one, where you have the training set and the test set. So this is kind of common across basically most of the learning algorithms, where you take the data set, you break it down as training set, validation set, and the test set. So probably I'll cover in generalization, and then probably I'll have to wind up in the interest of time. So generalization is also another core concept that we need to understand. So generalization is about the ability of a model to be effective on previously unseen data. So if I simplify this, I'll take the same example of the class. So there are people in the class who will try to not learn much of the concepts within the class. And then there are people who try to overlearn, they try to memorize everything. And then there are a set of people who understands the core concepts. And then when there's a new problem at the exam, maybe they do well because they know the core concepts. They have not basically memorized everything. So this is the same thing with machine learning. You take a machine learning model, if you ask it to learn too much, what will happen is it will end up in a state called overlearned or overtraining. So what happens is, just like your machine learning system has just memorized everything. So whatever it has seen earlier, it will do good. But if it sees something that is new, a new concept, a new data set, it will not do good. So in machine learning also, it's similar to a class. What is important is your system needs to understand or rather generalize what's going on. You should not overtrain, overlearn a system. So I'll explain this with a very simple example. So this is a data set. So you have healthy and unhealthy trees. So this is the distribution of trees within the forest. Okay. So a very simple model for this would be something like a diagonal across this. Okay. So that's one option that we can do. The other option is we can come up with a very complex model like this, where it's not even close to a line, but it looks like it's doing a very good job. Nearly 100% of the data points are segmented correctly on this. But if you test out a real life example, what will happen is you will notice that there's a lot of error in this. So this is an example where you have overtrained your model. It's like your model basically has memorized everything. It's not technically memorized, but the output is like your model has literally overlearned or memorized what's going on. So whenever the model sees something new, it doesn't do good. So this is actually the importance of generalization. So initially, I think I was planning to cover a few more slides on feature engineering, mapping features and so forth, but probably I can discuss or do it on a follow-up session. So thank you. And is there any questions for me?
Because you can talk about your track and ask people to join if they're really interested.
Yes, of course. So I think this was overall the very first session in ML. So we got a bit delayed in starting off. So today, this morning, I shared you an email, whoever is on the machine learning track on few Udemy courses that you can start working on. So one was basically more towards understanding the core libraries, programming with Python and R, and the other one was on the AWS side. So if anyone's interested, please drop me a mail, copying Prashant and Amit, so that I can add you to the loop. So overall, I think myself, I think I've completed this Stanford course from Andrew NG. So probably I'll share you the details on those courses as well. But if anyone's interested, please drop me an email. We'll start effectively working on this.
Thanks, Ramdika, for the presentation. It's a good introduction. I think you can follow it up with multiple sessions, right? Am I right?
Yes, yes, because I think this is kind of the very basics, because I thought a lot of people would like to have the basics before we go into the details.
Yeah. You can talk about the cycle, the whole cycle, how it works.
Okay, sure.
And yeah, to the audience, I'm just telling this, we have a machine learning track for the ETO. So I don't know whether you know that we have multiple tracks. So Ramdika and Amita hitting the ML track actually. This is the first step towards initiating this track. So I think everyone who's interested doing machine learning along with cloud, I think everything will be on cloud, but it's adding with machine learning concepts. So you all can join this GTO track, which Amit and Ramdika are heading. So you can send them an email and say that you're interested, mainly because we are having a bit of a pipeline for some machine learning projects. So it's not only learning, it will be projects as well. So in the future, you can work on ML projects. Am I right, Ramdika?
Yes, Kishant. So I think when we get those projects, we'll definitely pick on the people who have done the research and the reading on this. So the people on the machine learning track have been involved, and especially I think with the last leads that we have been following, Suminda has been working on the platforms and so on. So it's not just AWS only, we are also looking at AWS in the sense SageMaker, and then apart from that, things like DataRobot, Dataiku are the ones we are mainly looking at the moment. So the thing is, when we get the project, we won't be having time to again ramp up and get resources ready. So whoever is ready by that time, we will have to work with them. So if you are truly interested, it will be valuable for you to start off.
Yeah, and to add a few points to that. Yeah, it's actually a very interesting area. I think machine learning has been there for such a long time, but the thing is, now it's been picked up because of the cloud and its capability, and there are multiple new areas in the ML as well. Like we have been asked to learn about ML ops, which part of the ops aspect of the ML. So there are multiple new channels as well. So all are new things. So it's high time we have to explore these areas, because we can't just rely on only the cloud. We have to explore other areas as well. So this is the best time to do that. I think we need to give support to these guys to do this course, do these tracks, and they can't alone do this. They need their support, your support, to do this. And it's not only for the company, for you as well. It's benefited. So please help them and to develop this track. Thank you so much, Randhika, for initiating this, and hopefully you can continue this in the future as well. Thank you.
Of course, thank you. Yeah.
If any other one has any question, you can ask. Otherwise, you can wind up. No problem.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone has questions? Okay, then probably we'll wind up. So thanks everyone for coming, and hopefully we'll see a few more faces on the ML track next week forward. Thank you.